So what I really learned from Niren was example that how you can make a extremely tough situation. They know their daughter will die any day, but how can they give her the gift of a positive experience till the time that she lived? So as a young teenager, she became a TED speaker. I asked myself the question, what did we do right in that company to deserve this kind of employee love? When you treat people with respect and dignity and create a space where they discover themselves and care for each other, people rise beyond what anybody thinks that they are able to, because they all rise in love, as Swami Chinmaya used to say. This is something very special.
Hello, folks. Welcome back. This is part 2 of Your Best Version. A quick recap. In the last episode, we looked at the school of inspired leadership, and in need of today's world is encapsulated in Patanjali's 5 Yoga Sutras, which go by Anandamaya Kosha, bliss through self-awareness, Jnanamaya Kosha, fueling higher intelligence for better decision making, Manomaya Kosha, developing emotional intelligence and compassion in thought, Pranamaya Kosha is the development of vitality, and Annamaya Kosha is a practice of gratitude and physical well-being. Continuing on this, Anil shares the tenets of building your best version, the power of forgiveness and reconciliation, and the tools to build passion. Let's dive right in. So, a two-part question. One, your own observations, learnings from your web series. Second is, how can one start becoming the best version of themselves?
There's something remarkable I learned from each one of the leaders who have come as a part of our series. And here are some few things that are common amongst all these virtuous leaders. One, I found they really had a deep sense of gratitude in their heart for having been given the opportunity to succeed. Almost all of them named people in their lives whom they were deeply grateful to, and many of them also named colleagues, people at work, their teachers. So they had this common quality of expressing gratitude. Like, Nitin Paranspe of Unilever's talked about how Dr. C.K. Prahlad gave him a simple question he asked. He said, your aspiration has to be higher than the resources that you have. Because as a manager, you will always try to ask for resources to meet the company aspiration. But as an entrepreneur, you have limited resources and you're thinking very big. That's how innovation occurs. So this was a really wonderful gift that they were acknowledging. And he said at the moment he heard from Dr. C.K. Prahlad, Nitin said that he just acknowledged it intellectually, saying great idea, but kept it at the back of his mind. And later on, when he became chairman of Unilever's in this part of the world, and he found there is this very interesting thing that he came back to him when his growth was not in levers keeping up with the market, or it was not growing as much as they were always market leaders. Why were they not growing fast enough? Why were they not being innovative? And why people were not taking that level of risk? Then suddenly this P.K. Prahlad's thinking came back to him as an example. The second aspect that I noticed is that these leaders had a fair bit of self-knowledge. That means they were pretty aware of what is it that their strengths are and how to put that to use. At the same time, they were also conscious of things that they were not that great at, and therefore they did not unnecessarily spend too much time in worrying about that. Because people who focus too much on weaknesses at the most can become mediocre in that area. But by learning how to leverage your own strengths towards aspects that matter to you, so developing that passion to use the strengths that you have and really making the full use of your strengths was, I think, something quite remarkable about many of these leaders. The third aspect I learned by observing them, that these people were all willing to examine different worldviews. They were able to hold paradoxes. It's like saying, how can I grow the business and yet manage my costs?
Mm-hmm.
How can I manage my costs without asking a single employee to be laid off? I mean, they were holding these paradoxes. So most people get lost between paradoxes because it becomes this versus that. Oh, how can you be employee friendly if you are excessively focused on returns? Or how can you be focused on returns the other way around? So there are very interesting paradoxes that we are brought up with, and we are not able to teach ourselves.
To toggle between.
So I think these leaders were practicing this and that.
Mm-hmm. Very interesting.
The other thing I noticed about them is all of them have faced significant challenges and failures in their life, and some of these failures are interesting that some of them had some inadequacy. For example, Dr. Santrup Mishra of Aditya Birla talked about how, he was, his entire initial education was in Odia medium, and then here he was going into higher education in English. He understood that he really has to work extra hard to make up. So, conscious of the background that you have, conscious of the limitations that you possess, what is the extra effort you have to make to learn? So, they understood that they had to take responsibility for those aspects and had to really put in extra effort to source that. Many of them who faced difficulties, you know, Dr. Mishra also faced some significant personal challenges in his life at home and how he overcame that. Niren Chaudhary, the man who's the global CEO for Panera Bread, his daughter Aisha, when she was diagnosed with a life threatening disease as a little kid, and the way he and his wife Aditi and their son Ishan faced that situation, that Aisha became a role model for the whole world. On her life, there is this movie, Bollywood movie that has come out called The Sky is Pink. Priyanka Chopra acts in that, and Farhan Akhtar acts as Niren Chaudhary in that. I was also incidentally the executive coach to Niren Chaudhary for a year while he was the global head of global
Panera.
president of no, before Panera Yum brands. He was with Yum earlier. In those days when he was the head of India, I was his coach. So what I really learned from Niren was example that how you can make a extremely tough situation. They know their daughter will die any day, but how can they give her the gift of a positive experience till the time that she lived? So as a young teenager, she became a TED speaker, and how they would encourage her to with her painting and creativity, love for pets and writing. So then her book got published on the day she passed away. Actually, that whole story about how Niren and his wife and family with dignity picked up that situation and used their own pain and an opportunity to ask the question how they could serve the well-being of others, and the enormous things they have done to help others in the process by sharing their experiences and story. So how you can make your own failure, your own pain, how you can channel that by practicing compassion. Because if you keep worrying about why me, why has this happened to me, you get into depression. But if you say, why not me? And now what can I do to serve others? The whole thing changes. And lastly, I just want to say another quality that almost all of them practice this humility of serving a cause which is bigger than themselves. You see, very interestingly, this is what I tell my students all the time. I said, if you find a sense of purpose in your life and you become the best follower of that purpose, then the world's best followers become the world's best leaders.
Best
Because
leaders.
leadership just happens to you because everybody watches the way you are devoted to that purpose or that cause. Then they want to go with you.
So
So
true.
then, yeah, so that's how this happens. So I think these are some of the things that I've learned. And your second part of the question is what is my own insight, what I've learned from others, and now you are asking me to share my own insights on the best version.
It's for people. If people were to kind of look up to and start preparing for best version of themselves,
Yes,
how would one
yes,
go about doing it?
yeah. I would say the following aspect. One, truly begin by asking those things in your life when you were at your happiest best, something in the childhood you did, something that happened in life which really, when you did something which in your eyes was special, and the happiness it gave you lasted for a long time. It was not momentary pleasure. So from those events in your life, you will discover if truly what you are being, what your own talent is and what your own gift is. Then ask yourself the question, what are the things I deeply care about? This could be people who matter to you. It could be their needs you are inspired to serve. It could be a problem that keeps you awake because you are troubled with the sight of, let's say, the poor animals or the orphan children, or a badly designed product or a service which is not being provided to society properly. Something that begins to resonate in your heart as a problem you are experiencing around you, and there is a inner calling that is guiding you to say, I should do something about it. And again, some inner voice seems to tell you this is the cause you are being moved by. When you are getting moved by this cause, do not ignore it. Pay attention, because you are getting guidance that this is an important subject for you and it is meant for you to play a role. So take responsibility for that and then find that. And don't postpone your happiness for the future saying, one day I will get the ideal day, I will give up what I am doing today, so then I will create something special for this cause. No. In your present organization, in your present context in life, what is the substitute work that you can do which is of a similar kind? Like a colleague of mine who wanted to work with animals and she had a financially difficult family to support. I said, obviously, if you want to take care of all the animals, which is like an NGO, you won't be able to feed your family. So what's the next substitute? So she said, well, caring for people. I said, what does that mean? She said, working in HR. And, she was my executive assistant, my secretary. And all of a sudden, I discovered this passion. And so we gave her exposure to HR. We transferred her to HR. She went on to become the global vice president of rewards with a big global company, because, this is what it is that you find how in your current context, what is it that you are being called to do, which can ask new questions, because she chose to give attention that compassion was important to her, serving others was important to her. She discovered that she could make a career in, we could make a career in this. So,
So
these are, yeah, go ahead.
you did touch upon what are the elements to kind of figure out the best version of yourself. What some of the tools, techniques that one can use to kind of dwell into it, do a bit of introspection and figure out, okay, this is what it is.
The first tool is that when you set a goal for yourself, periodically set time for introspection. And in that introspection, ask yourself the question, this is what I wanted to do, this is what I did. When I reflect about what happened and I introspect about what I did, what did I actually do? And what does this teach me about two things? One, my strengths in action and things that I am unable to do and therefore need to take responsibility for. And convert every performance gap into a learning agenda, because every performance gap is a learning agenda.
Mm-hmm.
And instead of giving yourself feedback that you don't have the ability, give yourself the feedback on what efforts can you make. Because the moment you say, I don't have the ability, then it's gone. Then you will say, I can never become good at something. But if you say, what efforts will I make to learn this aspect? Therefore, employ the tool of what is the best way in which I learn. Some people learn through reading, some people learn through dialogue, some people learn through experimentation and doing things. Some people learn by hearing themselves talk. So you should be conscious of the way you learn and deploy that way you learn by putting in better quality of efforts to learn, so that you become better at something which is the gap between what you want to do and what is happening to you. So this is the whole cycle of setting a goal, doing something, reflecting about it, giving yourself feedback on how your quality of efforts needed to be different, and then looking at the way you learn and leveraging that to become better at that aspect. And repeatedly, this virtuous cycle will help you to become a better version of yourself.
I think a step before that, you did touch upon what you cover at soil as well is finding the passion, right?
Yes. Yes.
How does one dig into their passion?
There are several things that matter to you. That one aspect is that you should be paying attention to. I told you there are things, what did you do very well, which made you happy over time? I described that to you.
Right.
Second, and I also described to you that when something is calling to you internally that you should do something about a cause, then that is guidance that you are receiving. So your inner guidance. So what do you deeply care about? because these signals you get about what you deeply care about, because your inner witness watches you getting attracted towards something that is mattering to you, even though you don't have an answer. The problem is mattering to you. And then when you have been very happily doing something of your best work as a result of certain talent you possess, so when what the talent that you have and the opportunities you get and what matters to you, when all of them come together, this is the three circles. When they come together, what I'm good at doing, what I care about, and the opportunity I have been blessed with, and I make use of that opportunity, when they come together, that is where you are really getting responsibility for testing out your passion. Because, sometimes I say I'm passionate about something, and an opportunity comes and you don't do anything about it. But here you are creating the time to take the opportunity, then you are really passionate. And this is not about saying, oh, I'm dreaming about this, but what are you doing about it? Even small steps. So I think when you are getting an opportunity and when you are caring about something and when your strengths are being aligned with that, because some people are passionate without the strengths, and that is not going to go very far. Some people have strengths but don't have the passion. That will also not get very far. Some people have both but lack opportunities because they are not creating their own opportunities by meeting like-minded people. So if you say you are passionate about something, you have to show up and meet like-minded people and find a way
Take it.
to take it further. So when
Mhm.
opportunities and competence and passion meet together, that is where that whole thing becomes like a virtuous cycle. And of course, my friend in Japan who talk about the concept of ikigai, which many people would be familiar with, have all these three circles, but they put a fourth circle. What is the world willing to pay for? Because after all, our passion should also feed our family. And so that can be that kind of a check that, okay, all this that we want to do should also make it worthwhile financially for ourselves and our families, so that that can also be done. The concept of ikigai. Yeah.
Wonderful. So, Anil, again, looking back at your wonderful career so far, both as an individual as well as a professional, any one or two incidents that you would want to share that had profound impact on you?
When I soon after I had joined Aisha, we were increasing our production. Our tractors were in hot demand, and it was a harvest season coming up, peak sales. And all the labor unions in Faridabad announced a strike because of some labor issue. And they tried to tell us to also close down. We said no. And we had an internal union. And the internal union also told management, no way, because our farmers need our tractors. So we decided to operate our plant. And a mob of 5,000 people came to burn our factory. They set up the next door factory, Hitkari Pottery, on fire. Police firing took place. 19 people died in police firing. This mob came to burn our factory. And our union leaders stood at the gate with the big lathis and sticks. And they told the managers, you please sit inside your office. You don't know how to handle this mob. So our union leaders, along with several hundred workers, stood inside the gate which they had locked. I told the security, you stand behind us. And the union leaders addressed the mob. They said, this is not the management or the owner's factory. This is our factory. If you walk into that factory today, you will have to first kill all of us. We are here to protect. I asked myself the question, what did we do right in that company to deserve this kind of employee love? And then many stories came to me about how the founder, little stories when the founder who had taken over the business from his father had come from Germany, Mr. Vikram Lal is his name, how he would sit on the shop floor without air conditioning under a ceiling fan. And when the tea was sent by in the crockery from the father's old pantry, he would say, no, don't send me in this cup. Give me in that mug that every employee drinks tea in. Those stories about how Vikram Lal had earned the love and affection of people, being a very humble person, working first, saying, what can I do for my workers before I do anything for myself? With that kind of a leader. And then having hired all of us. And like Vikram told me, Anil, I was 23 and a half. He said, Anil, I'm not a professional HR person. All I want is people to be treated fairly and with respect. And you are completely free to design the HR function, because I was asked to create the corporate HR function. and he gave us the complete freedom. And he's a great listener. He never underestimated the power of a 23-and-a-half-year-old guy who had worked for 3 years in Tata, coming and recommending policy proposals to him on how he should build his HR system in the company. He accepted every word of what we said. And it is remarkable, so that innovation and empowerment and feeling of sense of community that was created in Aisha. Next to Tata Steel, it's the only factory in the country. Till later on, for other reasons, it was closed down. Aisha, of course, sold the tractor business later. But for those 35, 40 years it existed, it's the only other plant besides Tata Steel which never had a single labor strike in its entire history. And, this is a very, very personal moment for me to say, when you treat people with respect and dignity and create a space where they discover themselves and care for each other, people rise beyond what anybody thinks that they are able to, because they all rise in love, as Swami Chinmayananda used to say. This is something very special for my life that I will never forget. The other thing I want to remember is, when we were to set up soil, and this land we were given, and Haryana government, the local people were not allowing us to build it because of some technical reasons, and we were always asked to go to the tout to find those ways of influencing decisions. And I had learned this in Aisha and in my family context, that we will never bribe anybody, no question. So the whole project was delayed by 2 years because of that, and we still did not succumb to pressure. And finally, we were at the Siddhbadi ashram of Swami Chinmayananda, where we all go with all our students and faculty every year. This is before soil was created. We were sitting there, and we had friends from all over the world had gathered there to help us to make a vision for soil. So then one of my colleagues asked me, so when is your class starting? I said, Guru Purnima Day, July 2009. He said, but today is 2nd October. Is your building ready? I said, even the construction has not started. Then we started talking about corruption in India. We got upset. So then we heard that His Holiness the Dalai Lama was giving a talk, and we went to listen to the talk. And the talk was on the power of forgiveness and reconciliation. So we came back there is a place which is Swami Chinmayananda Samadhi, a beautiful spot. We sat around it. We held hands like we normally do, and we offered a prayer. And I sent a message on my phone to the Haryana government administrator who had not approved our file for 2 years. I said, we are sitting at this holy place with all deep love in our heart. We please request you to give us the permission to start work, because this project is all about serving well-being of all. By the time we had finished our time of silence and meditation, a message came to my phone saying your file has been approved.
Oh, profound.
So I'll never forget this, that, when we tried to take the help of so many senior people we knew to access the Haryana government, to get them to give us our rights, nothing worked. But then when we all met and we listened to the power of forgiveness and reconciliation, and sent a loving kindness prayer to the Haryana government official, and sent a message full of loving kindness, actually the whole project was approved. So remarkable. So this is another thing that I'll never forget in my life.
Wow, very inspiring, very powerful. Thank you so much for sharing that. So, Anil, as we are getting closer to wrap up mode, and with the new year around the corner, if there is something that we, each one of us, can look into to make a difference to ourselves and to our community, what is that you would recommend us to be doing?
I would say right around us, in the places in which we live, there are people who are less fortunate than ourselves. Please find ways of improving their lives. If you can't do anything, wish them good morning and give them a smile. If you can do something, talk nicely to people. If you can do something more, find out how you can contribute to the community becoming better. To take responsibility. There are lots of things to be done in this world to spread compassion, empathy, the spirit of giving. When we all learn to practice compassion and the loving acts of kindness every day, it will make us richer, happier, more resilient, and it will contribute to the entire system around us developing that inner capacity. So my thing is, Small acts, random acts, small acts of loving kindness every day. That's all a simple suggestion. And I think a lot can be done just by that.
So very true. I think you become richer by not possessing but by giving.
Absolutely. Absolutely.
So continuing the track, Anil, you have done so much in the education sector, so that you're being recognized one of the thought leaders in this education sector. I think down the road, if somebody were to kind of come back to you and say that, Anil, for everything that we have done, we would want to create a book around your life and life stories. What do you want to title that book as?
Okay. It will be self leadership to serve the well being of all. Self
Self leadership.
leadership to serve the well being of all.
Okay. Wow. So there is self improvement as well as the community impact.
That's right. This would be the theme.
Okay.
Leading
Nice.
yourself to serve the well being of all.
Nice. And to wrap it up, you have been a proponent of maximum happiness to maximum people to the maximum time. So if you can touch upon that.
That's what we learned from Swami Chinmayananda. That's the motto of Chinmaya Mission worldwide, what you just said. And you know that the whole aspect of that is through your inner knowledge of understanding who you are and practicing a life which is full of creating and serving well-being of all. Because when you do that, in whatever capacity, whatever your role, wherever you are, when there are three paths that you could choose. One, of creating circles of sharing knowledge with each other and people who can come together and share their knowledge. Two, some people who really just believe in something which brings other forms of bringing people together, which are more of a devotional kind, whether it is music which uplifts people, it is a form of art, theater, whatever these aspects, when you get people together to pursue common areas of interest in a way of helping each other to grow and learn and contribute in that art form. You know, the art form is a very important part of creating and spreading happiness, and that creates a sense of devotion. And third, just offering to be a volunteer for becoming better citizens. Because we all elect people in a democracy, but we do not act as citizens. We just elect and then we finish, we believe our job is over. Actually, our job begins after electing somebody. We have to not only ask questions to those whom we elect, we have to support the ones whom we elect to be part of a solution. So that's action. So thoughtful action of good citizenship, an act of improving the emotional devotion to a particular art form that spreads well-being, and the knowledge sharing in a way to understand how we can become better individuals and better society. So either through knowledge or through devotion to the arts or through action on active citizenship. If we do all these three things, which is what Gurudev always taught us, Swami Chinmayananda, then you will spread maximum happiness to maximum people for maximum.
So wonderful. Thank you so much, Anil. Anil, it has been a pleasure having you on Inspire Someone today. Thank you so much for taking time and sharing those valuable insights with me. Before we wrap up, what is your Inspire Someone Today message to all the listeners out there?
You are all special. Each one has tremendous potential. Look yourself in the mirror and say, what a wonderful person. I am the best person who can take responsibility of being happy at every moment of my life by contributing to other people's happiness. That's what I would say. So thank you very much for listening. Thank you.
Thank you for listening into today's edition of Inspire Someone Today. It's been a privilege to bring in these conversations. If you like this episode and have any feedback or comments, do mail me at inspiresomeonetodaypodcast@gmail.com. Inspiring someone is like creating ripples around us. If you like what to listen, feel free to share them and let's create ripples of inspiration. Do not forget to follow me on my Instagram handle @InspireSomeoneTodayPodcast for all the latest updates. This is Srikanth, your host, signing off, and until next time, keep inspiring.